Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? Do you have trouble putting gas in your car? Uh-oh, what's going on here? My tank isn't even close to full. Or do you have a check engine light regarding your evap system or your evap vent solenoid? If that's the case, I got some good news for you because today I'm going to show you how exactly your evap vent solenoid works and also how you can test it. Now, in order to help you understand this whole thing better, we're going to start at our fuel tank. So as you can see at our fuel tank, we have gas in a liquid form, but we also have fuel vapors. Now, in order that these fuel vapors don't go to waste or get outside into the atmosphere without being filtered, the car companies have designed what's called an evap system. Through the evap system, these vapors get deposited into what's called a charcoal canister, which looks like this, and this thing is filled with carbon pellets. And as you guys can see, where it says tank, this is where the vapors enter the charcoal canister from your fuel tank. And on the car, the charcoal canister is usually located by your fuel tank. And as you can see in the case of this 2001 Hyundai Elantra, it's just to the left of our fuel tank here. So as more and more vapors from your fuel tank enters your charcoal canister, the hydrocarbon particles get deposited into your charcoal canister because they basically get stuck to the carbon pellets you have in your canister. And then from there, after the charcoal canister removes the harmful hydrocarbons, the rest of the air goes through your vent solenoid and out into the atmosphere. And then once in a while, in order to use the hydrocarbons that are deposited inside your charcoal canister, your evap system opens a purge solenoid, which opens your evap system to the vacuum that's inside your intake manifold. And from there, these hydrocarbons go and get inside your engine and then get reused. But we won't get into the purge solenoid in this video. I'll cover that in a separate video. Oh, and by the way, here's a look at our vent solenoid on this car, and as you would expect, it's right next to the charcoal canister. Now, as far as your vent solenoid is concerned, this solenoid is usually in the open position, which allows for the flow of the filtered air from your fuel tank and your evap system to the outside atmosphere. But your car's computer, in order to test your evap system, will close this valve, and then during the purging of your evap system, will measure the pressure or the vacuum that's in the system, and then compare that to some preset parameters, and if they're not within that parameter, it will throw a code. And these vent solenoids usually have two wires going to them. One of them is going to supply them with the constant battery voltage from your fuse or junction box. The other one comes from your car's computer, and your car's computer uses the ground side to activate and deactivate these solenoids. And again, it only does that when it's time to test your evap system. Under normal circumstances, these solenoids are open. So as you can see, here are two wires that are going to our vent solenoid. So if you wanted to check for power to it, you would get your test light and then connect it to a good ground. So after removing the connector, you get your test light, and the pin that gives you the nice bright light, that's the one that's supplying power to your vent solenoid. Now if you're using an LED test light like I am, you might not only get a nice bright light and one wire, which is the power supply wire, but on the other one you might get a little bit of a light too. See, the way this works is under normal circumstances, the 12 volts that goes through here goes through the windings of the vent solenoid or the solenoid itself, and then from there through the ground wire back to the PCM. And that's how the PCM, I think, knows that the wires and the connections are in good shape. Now, as far as why there is voltage inside the ground wire coming from your car's computer when you remove the connector, I'm not really sure. You know, that voltage just might be the computer's way of checking and making sure this wire is not shorted to ground, checking to see whether the circuit is complete, or I don't know, maybe the PCM is just being a bitch. But I don't know, the voltage is on the ground side. Just don't fall for it, and make sure you use a test light. By the way, I just said bitch for the first time in one of my videos. And I just said it for the second time, crap. And I just said crap, fuck. Shit, this is gonna go on for a while, isn't it? Now, as far as how you can find out whether the ground wire is doing its job, and also that your PCM is supplying ground to this solenoid, is that if you have an advanced scanner, basically you would manually turn this vent solenoid on and off through the scanner, and then either, you can listen to see whether it's clicking on and off or not, or you can also back probe these and making sure you're getting ground when you're activating the solenoid, and so on and so forth. But if you don't have an advanced scanner, what you could do is to first obviously reconnect this connector to your vent solenoid, then back probe these two wires, and then attach your test light to each end, both the ground and the tip of your test light. And then make sure that your engine is cold, that the car's been sitting for a couple hours at least, and then have someone turn on the car and then observe your test light. Because your car's computer, I believe, runs that test, the evap test, from a cold start and that's when it supplies ground. And if you got the test light back probed into these two wires, you should see your test light light up, indicating that your car's computer is indeed sending ground to your evap vent solenoid. Now, as far as why a bad vent solenoid would keep you away from putting gas in your gas tank, well, when this goes bad in the closed position, it basically keeps the vapors from entering your charcoal canister and then from there escaping out into the atmosphere. Because from the purge solenoid side, that's also closed under normal circumstances. So basically, pressure builds up here. You're not able to put gas into your gas tank freely. The gas backs up into the filler pipe, activating the shutoff switch inside the gas nozzle, and then that's how you're not able to put gas in your gas tank. But you not being able to put gas in your gas tank is not always an indication that you got a vent solenoid that's shut closed. See, if you have some blockage in this pipe coming from your charcoal canister, like these pellets, if they break up, or the whatever is keeping them in one place breaks up, and these get into this pipe and block the passage here, it's going to be the same. It's going to have the same effect. Same thing that can happen if this filter that's on some makes and models just after your vent solenoid, which is there to protect the hoses and the vent solenoid from getting clogged up with dirt and debris from the road, gets clogged up. If that gets clogged up, again, it's a blockage keeping the air from escaping into the atmosphere, and same thing is going to happen. Now, on the other hand, when you have a vent solenoid that's stuck in the open position and it doesn't close when your car's PCM commands it to, when it decides to test the evap system, well, in that case, if it's stuck open, when it's testing the evap system, it's just going to suck in a whole lot of air, and you got to get a check engine light for a large vacuum leak in your evap system. Now, if you get a check engine light and the code is for a small vacuum leak, that's usually a problem with your gas cap. What happens is this rubber seal around it goes bad, and then it allows for some air to get into the evap system, indicating a small vacuum leak. But if you replace your gas cap and you still have that code, then that's either a leak through one of these hoses or potentially a vent solenoid that doesn't close completely. Now, in order to find those small vacuum leaks, you'll need to pressurize the system using a smoke machine and then look to see wherever smoke is escaping, and that's where you have your leak. But if you suspect your vent solenoid and you want to bench test it to see whether it's not closing all the way, you basically just remove it, you supply voltage and ground to it, and when you hear the click, then you apply vacuum, get a vacuum pump, and you apply vacuum from this end, and if it holds vacuum, then it's okay. But if it's not holding vacuum, then that means that it's got a small leak and it's not closing all the way. Also, if you suspect that your vent solenoid is stuck closed, even if you want to bench test it, you simply remove it and blow air through it. And since without voltage or ground, this should be in the open position, you should have no problem blowing air through it. And that's all there is to it. Not sorry about the cussing, but if you like this video and want to thank me, obviously I'll appreciate all the comments that you guys leave, but make sure you share these videos I put up. That's probably the best way to thank a YouTuber or a content creator. That's how the word spreads, and that's how people get paid when putting up informative videos. But anyway, if you like this video, make sure you subscribe, and also if you want to watch some other related videos, I'll put a link to them on the side of the screen that you can check out, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.